Hey, it's Shinobi, a game about shinobis, also known as ninjas, though literally, shinobi means stealth. See this guy on the title screen? That's a stealthy looking ninja. You know who's not stealthy? Joe Musashi, who walks around in plain sight where everyone can see him and doesn't even bother putting on his ninja mask. The bottom line, Joe is more about kicking ass rather than stealth. He's only slightly less obvious than Bill and Lance from Contra. Now if you thought ninjas were assassins or something, you're wrong. Joe is here to rescue kidnapped children. Ninjas are just like Godzilla. They're all about helping the children. Now obviously this is a port of Sega's 1987 arcade game. Shinobi was nothing at all like Sega's loud, flashy superscaler games. This was a much less hectic side-scrolling action game that greatly resembled Namco's Rolling Thunder, and was notable for, among other things, one of the enemies being clearly based on Spider-Man. The Master System game changes it up quite a bit. It gives you a life bar, for example. And it also makes you play these horrendous mini-games between levels. You have to shoot ninjas before they reach you. It's really hard. Beating this will grant you some ninja magic. Level 2 features both the Andy Warhol-esque posters of Marilyn Monroe and the Spider-Man enemy. Now there are 5 areas, each broken down into a few levels each. At the end of each area is a boss, a gigantic ninja-looking dude in this case. You need to hit him in the face while avoiding his fireballs. The second boss, called Black Turtle, is, get this, a helicopter. Or maybe a guy who's flying the helicopter, though your wanted sheet actually shows the helicopter, not the guy. Which doesn't really make much sense. I mean, helicopters are mass-produced. There's gotta be 1,000 other helicopters out there just like this one. Each level changes the environments quite a bit, and new enemies appear on a regular basis. As you may have noticed, most levels feature 2 floors. Holding up or down on the D-pad while you jump will cause you to switch floors. So if an enemy is hiding behind a crate or something, you might be able to switch floors and come around behind him. One thing I love is when you get the kids, they go flying off diagonally through the air, like it kicked them off screen or something. And by the way, rescuing the kids is actually optional, but doing so will get you bonuses, such as refilling your life bar, extending your life bar, getting better weapons, and so on. And trust me, you will need the extended life bar in this game. This boss, for example, rather irritating. I think if you have the default shurikens, he's pretty much impossible to defeat. You just can't throw him fast enough, so you need to have a powered up weapon here. It's a 2-part boss. The second part is his face, which throws bouncy fireballs at you. A piece of cake if you stand right in front of him. After this, things start to get a little hairy, when crazy flying ninjas start jumping out of nowhere at you, which raises the obvious question, Joe Musashi is a ninja. Why can't he jump around like this? Why can't he do crazy surprise attacks? Now unfortunately the game does have just sort of one particular moment that kind of brings the game down. Shinobi's moment of tomfoolery is right here, this jump. Let's try that again. Here we go. Shoot the bad guy first. I was right on the edge when I jumped. Yeah, it seems like you literally have to be standing on the last pixel on that platform in order to make the jump. Thanks, Sega, for trying to kill us with one stupid jump like that. There isn't really much difficult platforming in this game, though there are a few Ninja Gaiden-esque moments of enemies hitting you midair and knocking you into a bottomless pit. Oh no, this boss, a giant samurai, is called Lobster, because he's red, I guess. Beating him's all a matter of timing. You need to shoot him with his sword is lowered a bit. You kinda sorta need to get in the groove when fighting this guy. Now on the final level, Sega turns up the heat a bit. You start out getting pummeled by surprising flying ninjas coming from every direction. Memorization, or advancing very slowly, is the key here. In general though, Shinobi is best played cautiously. You can't just rush in, or you'll take too many bullets in the face. Now if you do manage to make it to the last level alive, I recommend playing very carefully, rescuing all the kids to get a health refill so that you can reach the final boss with a relatively full health bar. Now the Masked Ninja boss is sometimes considered difficult because you have to use specific tactics to defeat each form. First time you're playing, you're going to have no idea what to do, because these tactics are really not very obvious. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get killed real quick. So for his first form, you need to hit him in the approximately 1/20th of a second that his shield is down. Once again, it's all a matter of timing. When he switches to Hurricane form, use a melee attack right when he reaches you. For his Shadow Double form, hit him right when he touches the ground. And then in his final Pile Driver attack, trap him between you and the wall and just keep pummeling him. It's a tough battle, and a little cruel because you really can't mess up more than a couple times without dying. But finally you'll persevere, defeat the Masked Ninja, rescue the kids, and are finished with the game. And now you finally get to see the end of Shinobi. I see. Well, screw you too, Sega. We've almost reached the end here, folks. Lightning strikes a temple. Very ominous. Hey, this looks familiar. Why, in fact, this is Kujaku-O. If you saw Chrontendo 36, then you know we saw this game, better known in the West as Spellcaster. In the US it got a more boring title screen. The Master System Kujaku-O came out in August, and the Famicom one came out in September, so Chronsega and Chrontendo are right about lined up now, so both series have reached early fall 1988. And remember, of course, there was also an MSX release as well. All the versions start out the same, with the Peacock King talking to this guy about the attack on the temple, and they follow the same plot, since they were based on a manga. But the Famicom and MSX games were adventure games with RPG turn-based battles. However, someone, presumably Sega, heavily reworked the game for the Master System, and the adventure game interface is really only used at certain points. Oh, and this is funny, if you waste time talking to this guy, he'll call you an idiot and tell you to get out. Well, anyway, huge chunks have been ripped out of the original game and replaced with side-scrolling action sequences, so it feels a bit more like Shinobi or Rastan. I don't know if any major changes were made for the US version. The most obvious thing is the protagonist's outfit. In the Japanese game, he wore like this flowing robe thing. In the US game, it was obviously altered to look more like a Kung Fu Master type outfit. So at the end of each action sequence, you reach your destination, usually a temple, and then you get a little bit of adventure gaming. Mostly this consists of you talking to people, and these scenes help advance the plot. Izumo, that's a famous temple in Japan. Shouldn't this guy know that? He's a Japanese guy who hangs out in temples, after all. So you talk to this guy, then you head back, talk to the old guy some more. He'll tell you Izumo's a temple, then you head to Izumo, then more side-scrolling sequences. At the temple, you find a bad guy, and then you get a boss fight. After you defeat him, he'll provide some exposition, then you head back to the old guy, etc. And that's sort of how the game goes, at least for the first half. Unfortunately, the adventure game segments aren't really any better here than they were in the Famicom game. In fact, maybe they're worse. It's mostly a matter of looking, talking, and occasionally picking up or using an item, but the game can be stubbornly illogical at times. Take some spaghetti, the guy says. Sure. You hit take, and there's nothing to take. I'll look again. Yeah, spaghetti's still there. He still wants me to take it. Why can't I pick it up? And the action sequences aren't as polished as they could be. Like, hey, how did I miss that platform? I guess if the back of your heel on one leg is on the edge of a platform, you'll just magically fall right through the platform. Also, enemies can respawn like way too quick. Look at this, didn't you have time to like walk past where that orange thing was? And he reappears like a second after I shot it. I bet this enemy came straight out of the manga version. Just look at the guy. So about the spells, you have the same spells as in the Famicom game, and they can be used in the action sections. Udo unleashes a powerful fireball. That's what I'll use to take out this guy when I get a chance. The magic can be a little bit awkward to use. You need to hold down the button and then squat. If an enemy hits you while you're trying to squat, this cancels the magic attack. Oh, and by the way, the strength up there, that is your life bar or your hit points, and ENGY is your magic points. Here's another rage-inducing moment here. There's stuff on the ground, but when you look, the game tells you there's nothing strange there. So let's look at that sword that looks like the famous Japanese 7-branched sword. Probably important, so we better take that. But you try, and there's nothing to take. Well, yes there is. The sword. Why can't I pick up the sword? And that's how this game tends to go. If you're wondering, you have to look at the sword a second time before the game will let you pick it up, for some mysterious reason. So the adventure game parts are really infuriating. The side-scrolling parts are pretty repetitive. You go to like 5 temples in a row, and they're all pretty similar. A couple are pretty much identical. Later, the game does mix it up a bit. You have to rescue a girl from a sea monster. But the game gives you no clues as to how to do this. It involves casting a series of 3 spells, but since the game gives you no in-game descriptions of what your spells do, there's really no way to figure this out unless you have a manual or a walkthrough. The Spellcaster isn't a terrible game. It plays like a side-scrolling action game with interactive cutscenes between levels. This gives it much more plot than most similar games, but the execution of both the adventure and the action sequences really don't quite live up to the concept.